Hi everyone, welcome to the fourth video. This should be near the end of the series. I may do one more on animation, but today I want to cover a few things. Last week we covered a few of the if-then scripts. I would like to give you an inventory, show you how to use resources and add those in. I would also like to show you options of how to finish your game, how to add lights, and how to add music. So quite a few things today, but it won't take long because now you know the user interface quite well, the Unity editor quite well, and the rest of these are much more simple once you've done all the rest. Okay, so let's start out. I just want to start out with the music. I think would be the easiest thing to start out with. So in Unity, this one we're using 2022.3 2D Core, if you remember. It's automatically has a camera, our default camera. If we click on our default camera and we look in the hierarchy and we scroll down, you'll see that we have this thing called an audio listener. Since we have a camera follow script on our camera, which is following our main character around, we can have the listener be near our player in any place. So this camera will listen to music wherever or sound wherever my character goes. If I'm passing an object, say, and let's say I wanted to put music on this coral or a sound effect like bubbles coming out of something, then I could add music to this coral, and as my character passes it, it would hear it. But I want to give you a simple way to just start having background music for your game. It's fairly simple. So first we need an audio clip. I have already pre-downloaded an audio clip for you, which I can find on my desktop. But first I'm going to go into my project folders here, and I'm going to create a new folder. You want to keep everything organized, as you remember. And I'm going to call it Stacey's Music. Keeping it organized is the key, really, to being able to find all of your assets. So now I opened it and it's empty and it's ready to receive my audio clip. So I'm going to go to my desktop and I have it here. I'm just grabbing this. It's the only one that I had. I didn't go searching for any. I probably wouldn't use this for my game, but it's okay. I'm dragging this. It's an MP3 and dropping it here. And you can see it automatically creates a music clip right here, which is fantastic. That's what we want. So I'm going to go into my hierarchy and I'm going to create a general empty. That means it's going to play over my whole thing in this scene. It should stay for the whole scene. And I'm going to label it music, or it could be game music, whatever you want to label it. Okay. But it's just an empty right now, so I need to add a component. I'm going to add a component from audio. I can search this in the audio bar as well. I want an audio. Here we go. We have a listener. We need a source. So I want to have an audio source. So this is what's going to play. And you can add an audio source to many different things. So like I said before, I could add it to this coral or to something else. You know, you could add it to an enemy to make, scary noises if you wanted to. And right here, if you look in here, I've got this slot for an audio clip. So pretty simple. I can drag and drop this into the spot or click here and search for a clip. Okay. Either way, you can do it either way. So now I've basically added music. I'm not so sure that you guys can hear it if I play it. Let me just see if you can hear it. I know I can hear it through my headset, but I'm not sure if you can hear it. Anyways, it'll play the whole time now. So that's a very simple way to add music. So that's the first easy thing that we're going to do. Second, I'm going to show you how to add a resource. Usually that would be, we would see it in our user interface, our prefab that we dropped in for scoring. If you remember, we had the scoring here, the health and score. But in this version of Playground, it's not set up. So I'm not going to bother setting it up, even though I have it here and could turn it on. I do have something that I started doing, but I would need to add a script also to this, which I don't have. So I figured it would be simpler just to know that I need to collect a few things. So maybe it's something that my player discovers. That's perfectly fine. So I'm going to add two things to my resource, and I'm going to have the seahorse that I drew. I added quite a few of my more artwork that I drew since last time. So I have these little seahorses that I drew, and I actually have 3 of them in my scene right now. But I'm going to just use these 2 as the demo. If I click on my seahorse and I go into my inspector, you can see I've added a collider. And again, I'm going to remind you that a polygon collider does take up more computing power than, say, a primitive like a square, a circle, or a capsule collider. I could have just as easily used a capsule collider on him, but since I'm not building this to a mobile game, I don't really need to worry about that. But keep that in mind as you're doing that. Okay, and then I went to the Playground scripts. So under Unity Technologies Playground, down in Scripts, under Attributes, let me slide this back over, and let's say, we'll go here. Actually, this is better. I don't know why it's not showing the gizmos. Oh, I have my gizmos turned off. Yes. Remember, I told you you could turn your gizmos on and off here, so it shows your scripts. So you can see that I already have these scripts on here. But it's under Attributes. So if I go into Attributes, I do have a resource script right here that I can add to my seahorse. So I've added this inside here in my inspector, this resource script. Okay, a little warning will pop up and say, don't forget to change your collider to a trigger. So you have to remember to check this trigger box, because remember that when something enters this collider, then that means something will happen. It's not just like an invisible fence barrier like we have on the kelp or something. Okay, and it says types of resources that I want to use. Now, Playground has given me these already because these images are already in their inventory, but I wanted to add my own, the seahorse, so I had to add remove types. So I went in and I added, just click here and you add in whatever type it is if you have your own unique type. You could call it a coin or something else, but it's better if you put in exactly what you want, so then you know what it is if you do an inventory panel on your UI later. Okay, you need to make sure you tag this as pickup, just like you did with your collectibles, but this time it's going to be a resource. So now I have it set in my user interface. In my cave, which I've drawn just here, which was my treasure chest. Let me scroll out. I had swapped my sprite. So here it was the treasure chest, and all I did was just drag and drop in. You can also select this way for a new sprite. So you can sub in anything here, any of the sprites. Okay, and then I changed the name to Cave Portal. You can change it here or here from Treasure Chest. Okay, so now I've already swapped out that placeholder sprite that I was using before. I had a polygon collider on it before, so I changed it out for a circle collider. I had already added a condition area and a load level script, but now I want to have it so that when my penguin enters here, he can't change levels until he has at least 2 of these. So I can change that here in my consume resource script. So that's a then script. So we need to go to here, scripts, and we need to go to, this is the wrong scripts file and I don't know why. down here. We want to go to the scripts file. Here we go. So our conditions file. So we had the condition, remember, is the area, condition area, and this is going to work for both my load level and my consume resource. It can work for two different things at once, and we can add them here with this little button, if you remember. So we can turn things on and off, we can teleport, we can do a lot of stuff, all with multiple scripts. Okay, but so what I want mine to do is I want it first to consume the resources, then to let me load the level. So it won't actually work if I only have one seahorse, but I have to have two. And I find that in here, consume resource. So I drag that in here first. And it really should be in the order that you want the actions to happen. So my consume resource needs to have two of them. And then it will load a level to my level 2. So this is what I have when it hits my collider. I changed my collider up a little bit. As you can see, my collider's offset because I want the penguin to look like he's starting to enter the cave before any actions happen. So let me go ahead and show you what will happen when I hit play. Okay, I can hear the music. I've gotten one of my collectibles. As you see, it hasn't shown up here on my screen as inventory. But if I go to my cave and I try to go in, I can't go in. So it's because I don't have two. So once I get two, I go into my cave and it loads to my next level. So this will work really well if you want to have different items or more challenges in your game. Okay, so that's another kind of thing. Okay, secondly, you saw when my penguin entered, you saw this light here. He entered into this light. So I've added some lights onto different objects in my game, and I want to show you finally how to do that, and then we'll talk about different ways to end the game. So in my cave, let me go to my cave here. It's under my environment, I believe. Let me just click on it. There it is. Oh, there it is, my cave portal. I have added a 2D light. Now, the easiest way to do that is I've put this as a child of my cave. So what that means is if I move my cave around, the light will follow. So let me show you. It's attached. Let me zoom out. And you can see that wherever I move my cave to, the light follows. So I'm going to Command Z back there. It's attached. This is very easy to do. You can I'll add a second light to it. I'll turn off this light. You can turn off any element by just unclicking this, and you can see the difference it made. And if I right click on my cave portal and I scroll down to lights, you'll see I have this menu here. Now these are 3D lights here, and these are for 3D. But down here I've got these 2D lights that I can have. I've got a sprite light, a spotlight, a global light, which we already have by default in our scene, and a freeform light. Now, I like using the freeform lights. They're kind of cool. I'm going to add a hexagon just so you can see it. Okay, and it's placed it right here in the center where my pivot is, which is fine. It's now attached it to the cave portal because it's put it as a child here. You can also move these individually, and just like we did organizing over here in our hierarchy. So if I go look in my inspector, it's kind of small, so I can't really see the light. I can see it a lot easier if I go up to my global light and I turn off my global light and I turn off my gizmos. I have to move this all over so I can get to it. Turn off my gizmos. There we go. Now you can see it. Okay. It's kind of small. And I'm going to go ahead and start working on this one. So first I'm going to turn up the intensity by just sliding or increasing the number here. That didn't really do much, so we want to make sure, oh, that's because I'm on global light. So let's go down to my light here and turn up the intensity. Okay, now you can see this. You can see how bright it goes. You can also adjust the color. So I can change it here to something else. Make it a red light, for example. Let's do that and make it super bright. And then I have this thing called a fall off, which you can see how wide it goes to. Now you can start seeing my cave. So if I bring it out to about here, and I can adjust where my light goes as well. And then I've got this strength on the outside. This is kind of like a vignette, and it has the solid line around it, or softened line, you know, the vignettes you can put around your photos, your selfies on your phone, something like this. So you can see how I can adjust that. I'm going to move it slightly because I want it to be a little more centered for the entrance. And then maybe take it down just a notch. Okay, now if I want to change the shape, even though I've put in this hexagon, there's a little edit button right here. So if I click this, you can see my light here, and I can actually take these little points individually and pop them out a little to extend where I want my light. This is super nice, really convenient. So this is why I tend to use these freeform lights all the time. So this is kind of the main thing you need to know about the light, the freeform light. Let's go ahead and switch it to a sprite light, and we can see what happens. Now this light requires a sprite to be added in the sprite slot. So let's go to let's put a starfish in there since I've got those. Let's go up to in my project and go to my characters, actually my environment. Do I have starfish in here? Pull this up so we can see it a little better. I've got a coral. Let's do, I think it's under characters. Let's do a starfish here and drag it into the sprite slot. Okay, so now you can see it's kind of see-through, but it still has the shape of my sprite. And you can still adjust the intensity here. This is great for overlapping a light exactly over something that you already have another game object. So if I want to light up my starfish, for example, change it to a blue color and make it really blue, then I can do that. These work great for that. Even for glow in the dark, it could just be a light because it becomes an object. Okay, so that's the sprite one. It's always a sprite shape. Let's go to spotlight. All right, so I'm going to actually increase the size of this so you can see it a little bit. And here we have the intensities already up. And here we have the inner and outer spots. We can adjust them here. And we have the inner spot size and the outer spot size. So I'll bring out my outer spot size. Let's see. You can see how it's adjusting here. I'll take down the intensity a bit so it's not quite so bright. And adjust the outer. I still have this fall off strength, so I can make it softer or harder depending on how big I have it. Do it here. And I like mine quite soft, especially for something like this. And then this is your angles. So each of these little, you'll see this little dial is split in half, and you can adjust them individually. So this one goes up, inner and outer. Here you go. So you can see how you can adjust the inner and outer just using these little dials. And these are very useful if you want to highlight like a plant or a tree or have like something shining up on a statue or something like that. So these are the kinds of lights that you have available to you. Go back, global, remember lights everything, and I'll just turn this one off. And we'll go back to our global, which is on our default here, and turn it back on. And so now the whole thing is lit by a global light. I think I just turned that one into another global light on my cave portal. Oh, maybe I didn't. Okay, I'm going to turn on my 2D light that I already had set in here. Okay, so now this was just actually a freeform light, and I crossed the points over each other to create this star effect. So anyways, that's how you set up lights. Okay, now I'm going to take you to my second scene, and we'll talk about different ways that you can win, or you can end your game. I guess not win. You don't always have to win. So let me go to my scenes. I'm going to go to my second scene. Sure, I'll save this. Why not? Okay. I'm going to zoom out and show you what I've got here. If you remember the last video, loading levels, I duplicated my scene. What I've done here is I've changed the color of my background sprite here to make it like a deep underwater scene. And inside of that, I've added like a light to a kelp. I've added the light to my penguin. I've changed the treasure chest to become this sparkle sprite. And then I added another sprite light underneath it. So if I go to my sparkle sprite, you can see the light that I've attached underneath it. There it is. Okay, so these are a few things that I've done so far. Now, with this this next load level here on this one, I took it to my third level, which is one way of ending the game. So I just created a third level here, added a few elements, and a canvas. By right-clicking canvas, you can scroll down to canvas, or you can add it from up above. Okay, and in here, what I did is I added a component called text. So if I type in text, you want to use this regular text one because you don't have Text Mesh Pro downloaded, but you're certainly welcome to do it. It's a little bit fancier, but it's not necessary. So I added this text component, and in here I typed what I wanted it to say. I changed the font size to where I wanted it, changed the style, and kept the line spacing here. I was able to put it center. Okay. And I could change the color of my text as well. I can also do that on my user interface if I wanted to change it at all. So maybe I could do a bright yellow. That would be kind of nice. Something like this. I don't know. Instead of white. And there you have it. So when I move to then this third level, it basically ends the game. I didn't bring in my penguin, so my penguin won't load into this level. Okay, so I hope that's clear. That's one way of ending your game. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to go back to my first level, and I'm going to go into my user interface here and talk a little bit about another way that you can do it. So I've got my user interface, which comes as the prefab, if you remember. Okay, and in my user interface here, I can adjust how I want this game to go. So I can have 1 player or 2 players, and I can have a type of game that ends with a score, and I score to win would be like 50. And you remember, this is your collectibles. So I did my starfish in the last video as collectibles. So if I got 50 starfish, I could win. For example, that would bring me to a win, and it would pop up here in my screen. or I can play until I lose all my health, or I can create an endless game. Okay, so if you want to constantly loop your scenes so you get to your last scene and then instead of reloading the level, it loads back to your first level, that's completely possible as well. Okay, so I am doing this one and I'm using my third screen as my finish. Of course, not all of my stuff is set up in here yet. I'm still in my second scene. I am going to swap out some sprites as soon as I draw them. I'm going to take out this seal and I'm going to add like one of those glow-in-the-dark anglefish. And I'm going to swap out my starfish for jellyfish, glow-in-the-dark jellyfish. So it'll be more of a night scene. So those are all the elements I wanted to share with you today. And with that, you should be pretty much done. I may do a 5th video, like I said in the beginning, to show you some simple animation and to add a particle system, because I'm going to add a particle system, which is kind of cool, to my penguin here to spurt bubbles every time he moves. So I think I'll do a video on that to show you how to do a particle system. And you can add things like snow, anything that kind of has multiple, like sparkles, smoke, fire. You can of course download these too from the asset store, already completely done, but it's kind of fun to create your own, or you can modify ones that you've downloaded from the asset store. We'll talk about that in the next video. I hope this was super helpful for you and you're near completion on your 2D game.